Hi, my name's Marc Owings, and I'm one of the elders of Lake Country Church. And thanks for joining me this morning with a cup of coffee and my laptop for a devotion. The verse today is Galatians 1:10, and while you're looking that up, we're really asking that the Father would encourage you in the walk that you have with Christ through the Word of God. And each time we dive into the Word of God, it becomes alive and good as we eat it. You know, the Bible tells us that man doesn't live on bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Today, God's talking to us through the Word. Let's listen to what He has to say. Galatians 1:10 says this, "For am I now seeking the favor of men or of God? Or am I striving to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ." Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever gotten confused of why you're doing what you're doing? Maybe going to church, maybe serving somebody, that you get confused of, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing this for God? Am I doing this for man? I think all of us ask that question, or we should ask that question. And I can tell you one time in my life that I asked that question. I got the two confused. I began to do things for men instead of God, for the praises of men instead of God. And anytime you get that out of sequence, I can tell you peace and joy and hope will leave your life just like that. Let me tell you the story. I was 19 years old, came to Christ, and started hanging out at this church, spending my time growing in the Word. And about a year into it, I started Bible school. And one of the things God moved on me one day was giving my time and my talent. And I didn't have a ton of talents at the time. I had been raised in the world, I'd been on drugs and alcohol, a lot of different things, and really God was repairing and restoring my life. So I came to this, you know what I could do for this church? Is I could clean this church for them for free. So I decided in my heart that I was going to do that as an act in service for God instead of man. Now let's watch what happens. At first, I started with very good intentions. I'm telling you, I put lines in the carpet. I don't know if when you vacuum a floor, I'm pretty anal. I like everything very clean and nice looking, and it was the nicest that church had ever looked. I used to take a toothbrush and go clean the toilet in places that a man should never go, but I was determined to steward what God gave us to bless other people. And about 6-8 months into this process, I was at a church service, and the pastor started talking how he appreciated staff and what they do. But he left me out. And I thought, golly, how could you leave me out? I vacuum your floors. I pick up trash. I clean your restrooms where people throw trash and every other thing that you can think of. And how could he do that, Lord? And the Lord asked me this question. I was in a stall cleaning a toilet, and I'll never forget it. He said, "Mark, why are you doing what you're doing?" I said, "Well, Lord, I'm doing it for you." And He said, "Really? Then why are you grumbling?" I said, "Well, Lord, I wanted them to acknowledge me." You know what? Exactly what Paul said. I began to serve out of a man-pleasing spirit, out of a desire to be validated and be noticed, instead of dancing for an audience of one. I want to encourage you this. There's no one else that you need to dance for or perform for. As a matter of fact, if the whole world was against you and God was pleased with you, that would be enough. I want to encourage you today to evaluate your life of why you're doing what you're doing. Is it for men? Is it to be seen? Is it to be validated? Is it to fix a wound that's in you? Let me tell you, if you'll do what you're doing unto the Lord, I promise you, He'll bless you. Here's the end of the story. As I got my heart right and finished strong that day and got my heart all straightened out with the Lord, the next Sunday, the pastor taught on servanthood. And he stood me up in front of the whole church and he said, "Guys, I waited for this man particularly because I knew I was going to preach on this topic. He has served you. He has vacuumed the floor. He has cleaned the toilets. And he does it at no cost. And Mark, I want to tell you, well done, good and faithful service." You know, many times, if you'll do what you are supposed to do for the Father alone, He'll not only honor you with validations from His mouth, He'll elevate you in the eyes of men. Let me pray for you. Father, I just thank you that we would realign our lives today. And the things that are out of alignment, I know many times I get that out of alignment in my own life. And I begin to start dancing for the hug. Dancing for somebody to validate me. And the only hug, the only validation that I need is from you. Lord, I pray that you would make this teaching real, this devotional real, and this word real to people throughout the day as they meditate on your word. In Jesus Christ's name. Well, thanks for joining me this morning, and I hope you'll meet me back here tomorrow morning bright and early for the Lake Country Devotional.